Governors of the Northeast demand power to prosecute suspected insurgents. At a meeting in Yola in the Adamawa State capital, governors in the Northeast demanded that the federal government should cede the power to prosecute suspected insurgents to state, as the present system of relying on the Attorney General of the Federation, a Minister of Justice, for prosecution of those arrested for terrorism is cumbersome. On his part, the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Muhammad Said Abubakar, expressed concern over the spate of insecurity in the north, saying that he has made the region the most unsafe place to live in Nigeria. However, the Defense Headquarters, DHQ, has assured the region that banditry and insurgency will soon end, as defense authorities have stepped up both kinetic and non-kinetic operations to combat the crimes. But despite the repeated claims for the federal government that terrorists have been degraded, a report by Global Terrorism Index, GTI, has again ranked Nigeria third most terrorized country in the world, with the number of deaths attributed to Boko Haram increasing by 25% from 2018 to 2019. The chairman, Northeast Governors Forum, and Governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum, at the opening of the meeting of governors, canvassed an amendment to the law that invested sole authority on the AGF to prosecute terrorists. Tundu, insecurity, insecurity, insecurity. Another recurring decimal in Nigeria. Your take?
Unfortunately. And here we have the restructuring argument taking a legal slant on the fact that the powers to prosecute terrorists should not be solely vested at the center with the Attorney General of the Federation and should be divested to states. And I completely appreciate that argument because the security situation in the north is beyond an emergency at this point. But I do worry because when you see some of the abuses that we have with state governors, imagine them having the power to tag somebody as a terrorist. And you can imagine the likely consequences of that, which I imagine is why the law is as it is, vesting that responsibility solely with the Attorney General, who is more likely to have a more objective view. But I do agree that every single thing needs to be re-examined at this point. Kinetic, non-kinetic, legal, diplomatic, everything needs to be thrown at this problem. And Governor Zulum of Borno State also mentioned the rape epidemic in the north and the Amajiri problem. Those two can be addressed quite simply if northern states would just domesticate the Child Rights Act, which they have refused to do. That time has come now. They all have to see that this is an emergency. You cannot continue to postpone it. And also the Violence Against Persons Act. Northern states need to domesticate it. Same goes for Ondo State in the southwest, which is the only part of the southwest that has refused to domesticate it, and some south and southeast states. It's beyond that time now. All these measures can be addressed, and I'm glad that they're looking towards a legal solution to these pressing problems. And that, I think, is the right way to go.
Yes, I agree with you absolutely that this is about restructuring from the legal angle. The basic argument about the federal system is that, look, what we have in Nigeria is more or less a unitary system whereby power is concentrated at the center and too much power is concentrated at the center. And as a result of that, many Nigerians have asked for a complete overhaul of the Nigerian constitution in order to make it a truly people's constitution. Now, in this regard, the anti-terrorism law vests the powers to prosecute terrorism-related cases in the office of the Attorney General. Now, what the states are now asking for is to be given the fiat to be allowed to prosecute terrorism-related cases in their states. Now, all these states, of course, that are raising this question, they all have attorneys general. And the attorneys general of the states, can take on any case. So why are they not allowed to handle anti-terrorism or terrorism-related cases? In any case, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation in Abuja will be overstretched, handling terrorism, cases of terrorism, banditry all over Nigeria. So if you devolve the powers to the Attorneys General in the states, it will in fact make the work of the Attorney General at the center easier. But then this will require an amendment of the anti-terrorism law to be able to devolve the powers. And of course, the northern leaders, the northern governors, they say they have charged the Committee of Attorney General of the 19 northern states to take on that responsibility. And it shouldn't be a problem from a legal perspective, because even private prosecutors can approach the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation to seek fiat to prosecute, certain cases. So if private prosecutors can be given fiat, how much less, attorneys general of the states. So in principle, I think that, they have raised a fair question that should be addressed. But the other question to address is, what is the motive? Because you recall that a while ago, the Attorney General was asking for some money to prosecute terrorism-related cases. I think at the end of the day, he was asking for maybe 11 billion, and then there was some talk about 2 billion. I hope that these state governors are not more interested in the money. That's one question. Another question is this. These are state governors of the North, many of them who have been cutting deals, signing memoranda of understanding with bandits and terrorists. Okay, are we so sure that when they are given that fiat, they will allow, they will do what they need to do? And some of them will not just go about, cutting deals with terrorists. That question is also there. But we should give them the benefit of the doubt when we toe the line of restructuring and federalism, which is the basic principle that we have defined. Now, northern leaders, it's very good to see them holding meetings. Leaders of the North, at the level of governors or, traditional rulers, they've been meeting since 1959 on different issues. It's a very regular thing. They will come together. They will talk about all the issues. They talk about education. They've talked about it again at this particular conference, about the Amajiri system. Since 1959, not anything significant has been done about it. This time around, they are talking about insecurity. Yes, we all know insecurity is a major problem. And that's perhaps why the accent was put on it when we had NSAS protests in the South, and they had end insecurity protests in the North. Now, the Sultan, at another forum of NIREC, the Islamic religious body, talked about the North now becoming the most dangerous place to live in Nigeria. Now, there was a Global Terrorism Index report only yesterday, which ranked Nigeria as number 3 again in the world, as the most terrorized part of the world, and the 3rd most terrorized. And if you look at the concentration of this insecurity, kidnapping, rape, whatever, the North seems to be more adversely affected. Now, all of these details are important to say that these northern governors, they are addressing real problems. But do they have the political will to follow through? Because if we have seen political will with regard to education alone since 1959, the rate of school enrollment in the North will not be where it is at this particular moment. So, good request, but political will, sincerity, these are the issues that I think that the northern leaders must address. And I hope that this present generation of northern governors would be able to make a difference. So we'll keep looking. But the office of the Attorney General, well, the Attorney General from the North should just follow through, and the request should be granted.
I mean, valid point you made, Dr. Abachi. You can't be more correct, because when you check the primary school enrollment rates in 5960 in the North, it was the lowest among the regions in the country. It was pegged at 250,000 when the East, for instance, had well over 1 million. And the West, too, after Awolowo's free education, had well over 1 million primary school enrollment rates. So it's a very valid point you raised, Dr.
In 1955, the Western region declared the free education policy. In 1957, the East followed through, focusing on education.
Yeah.
When the North saw what was happening in the East and the West, they held a meeting in 1959 on education. They've been holding the meeting since then.
And the East and the West had way higher primary school. In fact, it's 4-1, way higher primary school enrollment rates. So you are very valid on that, Dr. Abachi, right? We'll move on to other stories now. I would like to say very big thank you. We'll go for a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, pleasure to have you back. Our dependable Roto Duru is here. Roto, it's great to have you. Good morning.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. It's all tech today, all technology on the business front. First of all, as far as free speech is concerned, there is an account, a body called Paradigm. Paradigm is a body that looks to advocate for digital inclusion and digital rights in Africa. And they've been investigating whether pro-NSAR's websites have been blocked. Here's a tweet. It said, we're investigating suspected access disruption to the website of Feminist Co., a group that coordinated funding and logistics for NSAR's protest last month. If you're able to access Feminist Coalition, that's their website on the Nigerian Mobile Network without VPN, kindly reply. So they were asking people if they could. I contacted some folks in order to do do that. They couldn't access it, and I couldn't access it as well. So we can, later, second tweet, we can confirm that the Feminist Coalition website isn't the only website blocked on Nigerian mobile networks and some ISPs, internet service providers, as at 9:21 p.m. GMT, other websites central to the NSARS protest, they include a couple other websites, were inaccessible. And I did try to access those websites, and a website can be inaccessible for a number of reasons. They can either abandon the website and stop using it, or an ISP can be contacted and block the site. So the sites aren't accessible, and according to their investigations, it looks like they've been blocked. So this covert operations, as in order to, in silencing these accounts, we've talked about the freezing of bank accounts. It seems like it's continuing now, even on the internet side of things. So since still on the website, talking e-commerce now, Black Friday. Black Friday and the recession, what kind of impact are we going to see? I suspect that we're going to see sales will be compressed compared to last year. Now, in terms of volume, sales will be compressed, but in terms of value and price, things are more expensive now. Inflation is up, so maybe the participating retailers, especially on the e-commerce side of things, selling electronics and so on and so forth, maybe they'll be able to perform better. But we need retail sales data. I mean, just a couple days ago, the United States released US October consumer spending data, which is up for the 6th month in a row. Even in the UK, all these other countries, you have monthly retail sales. It would be nice to be able to compare and see exactly how much in terms of retail spending is we're seeing here for these events like Black Friday. There's also Cyber Monday as well. So if you're interested to see, but still, the fact that the disposable income of Nigerians is compressed, people have been laid off, salaries have been reduced, inflation is at 14.23%, food inflation 17%. These things are going to could possibly impact the sales figures that we see. But again, Black Friday, it's kicked off here around the world, even here in Nigeria. E-commerce websites are taking advantage of it. We'll see how those sales come out. And then still on tech, Bitcoin had a very volatile week. Look at this. This is just this week, from the 23rd through to the 27th. Look at the red line. Within 24 hours, it dropped about 12%, from 12 to 15% drop. From about it almost touched its 2017 high of $19,495 or so. That was about 19.2, 19.3. Precipitous drop to about 16,300 between Thursday, within a 24-hour time frame. And look, a number of people keep coming to me and asking me, should I get into Bitcoin? Should I buy into it? I've told people to be very cautious for this very reason. It is incredibly volatile, and you just don't know with the price swings. Bitcoin really isn't anchored to anything, although still with the forex liquidity issues we've seen. I talked on the morning show in the past about some traders in Nigeria who get their goods from China using Bitcoin to pay for them. So as an alternative means of payment, some people are using it, but as an asset and as far as return on investment, incredibly volatile. Let's look at a couple of tweets from Noel Rubini. Noel Rubini is an economist. I think he famously coined the term black swan, a black swan, when he was referring to events that are unexpected. I'll say this right now, he's no fan of Bitcoin, and he tends to wait for when it crashes to send out tweets like this. But this is factual. He says here, so Bitcoin has no intrinsic fundamental value, use, or utility, or any other service. So it is a pure speculative, manipulated asset and bubble with no fundamental value. It's not even a hedge against risk-off episodes. Every time stocks go down, Bitcoin falls much more. Continues. Example, look at March 2020 when US stocks fell 35% while Bitcoin fell over 50%. Thus, it has no role institutional investors or for retail portfolios. It would be highly irresponsible for any institutional retail investor to speculate in a totally manipulated asset like BTC. Again, though, like I said, people are using it for payments. We've seen that here in Africa. Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya account for the three, in terms of volume, largest countries in Africa where Bitcoin sales continue to increase. And with where the dollar is, especially this week, touching 480, it's said that it may actually move to 500 on a parallel market. With Christmas coming up, we might actually see more pressure. Again, these are the kind of things that might divert folks to use it for payments, and that's our update.
Okay, Rotus, I want to comment on Bitcoin. I know a little bit of the market. The truth is, if yes, it's very volatile, that's a good argument. But the question is, how are we going to reinvent money? When you look at the historical antecedents of money, it's always been a hedge against something. Trade by barter and the likes. Even the euro currency, before it came into place, you remember something called the ERM, the rate mechanism, that you had to hedge currencies against each other. Did that work? It didn't work. It was when the volatility hit, Britain had an economy downturn, you had a recession, and you had Black Wednesday in '92 that made George Soros very rich. So money itself is very volatile. I mean, the Naira will have taught you a lesson as regards that. And the future of money, because of a digital world, then you need a reinvention of money itself. So yes, the argument of the volatility is there. But my argument is, when are we going to reinvent money? Because at a point, we have to reinvent money itself, which is just a means of exchange. The reinvention of money probably will be Bitcoin. And that's where the regulation should come in. But you can hear people like JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, betting heavily on it. I'm not saying it's not volatile, but does it get the job done as regards the basic function of money? It does. Well, my argument.
Rotus.
Good argument. But the thing is that, Rufai, you can't have a currency dropping by 12% in 24 hours. The volatility can wipe out...
the Zimbabwean dollar dropped that much. I mean, the Bolivar dropped that much.
Zimbabwe is a basket case. You can't really use Zimbabwe as an example.
Rotus, you are an investment expert. I mean, ordinary people like us listening to this who may be interested in Bitcoin. As an investment expert, what will you advise in the face of this volatility? Cautious buying or stay off? And will Bitcoin go through a phase of correction, in due course? And then this talk about a regulatory framework for Bitcoin in Nigeria. Where are we with that? That's one. Now, the second question I would like to ask you is about Black Friday. Contrary to what you said, yes, it's true there is inflation, spending may be a problem for the average person. But yesterday, in some places where they already started the Black Friday, look, I went to a store, I was given a tally number, I was number 96. I had to leave. I mean, I couldn't understand why I should queue up number 96 on the queue because I was looking for a small discount. And in any case, these discounts that they are offering across the shops, are those discounts real or they are just manipulative?
Great questions, Doctor. Yeah, look, for Bitcoin, I'll tell people to stay away. I mean, that kind of swing, look, in 2017, Bitcoin hit almost $19,500. By 2019, it had dropped to $3,000. That's almost 90% of the value wiped out just because of volatile swings. So I would advise people to please, if you are curious, you just want to experiment with money you can afford to lose, you can probably just to satisfy your curiosity. But if you see those tweets from Nuriel Rubili, it is not anchored to anything. So Bitcoin needs to be regulated by central banks in order for it to have more, for the trust to be increased in it. But right now, it's not anchored to anything. It is just too volatile, and it can wipe out your savings if you put money in there. So it's too risky, and I tell people to stay away. And okay, to the second part of that first question, yes, it does need regulation. The Central Bank of Nigeria, I attended a gathering that they had about a year or 2 years ago where they looked at it. So the Central Bank has been looking at it to see how it can possibly be regulated. Christine Lagarde of the European Central Bank, she's also talked about the ECB, to Rufai's point, going into digital currencies. Black Friday, there's interest. Again, Doctor, we need to see data. We need to see whether this can be translated into actual increased sales from last year. So by your what you've witnessed, there's definitely interest. But then, based on where compared to last year, we will see higher sales. That's really what I was checking for. But it would be interesting to see at the end of the day if we had higher sales compared to last year, whether the recession has an impact on the spending power of Nigerians.
Well, retailers are certainly hoping that they will have higher sales. They've had such a difficult year.
Yeah, indeed.
But you can't tell whether they are manipulating us or not.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you, Doctor. Sorry. Yes, indeed, that is a valid argument. Some of them will say 70% off, 80% off. But 80% off what? It's probably off of a higher price. So even if you discount it, it will probably still be what the regular price would have been before the Black Friday sale. So yes, doctor, there have been some tricks there in terms of those discounts. You have to have had an idea of what the price was, what the price of those items you want to buy coming into Black Friday, so you can compare properly.
Anyway, Rotus, who even determines the price in the first place? Moving on. All right, moving on to business update. Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Great to have you, Michael.
Morning. I'll add to I noticed the Bitcoin movement as well, and I'd absolutely reinforce what Rotus was saying about that. I was talking to somebody yesterday about Bitcoin, and the idea about it is that everybody's very skeptical about it. I mean, yes, it is very speculative. Remember, there is only a limited supply of it. If you want to get exposed to Bitcoin, then the way to do it is to have it part of a very, very, very tiny part of your portfolio in a Bitcoin fund. I would not get exposed to the currency itself. It's too small, and there's a lot of discussion about digital currencies. That's not what Bitcoin is, a digital currency, but it's only the forefront of it. The actual digital currency discussions are taking place with banks. I would much rather, if I were an exporter or an importer, for all the rights and wrongs of whichever ways currencies move, I'd much rather have a central bank backing it than the vagaries of Bitcoin. That's the view from here about Bitcoin, if you're interested. Okay, UK closed for Thanksgiving yesterday, so everything fairly muted, quite honestly. The markets even ignored shall we call him President Trump's anyway, statement that he would concede whatever the electoral college said about the result of the election, and that effectively that confirms Joe Biden's win, quite honestly. Asian markets began to edge a little lower. That mass ban from India we were talking about yesterday has affected Asian markets as well. And Chinese companies, they're pretty nervous, quite honestly, after a run of corporate defaults and also an increased oversight of the technology sector for more traditional stocks. Obviously, China very strong in technology stocks. News that AstraZeneca is going to conduct more trials after criticism of its data. That helped as well. The US markets are open briefly today, bond and equity markets, but very, very tiny indeed. Probably not worth worrying about. Let's move to China, and the latest from them. They seem to be having a trade war with everybody at the moment. They're doing it to Australia now. Anti-dumping measures, they call them, impose taxes of above 212% on wine. That starts tomorrow. And it's commerce industry. They're worried about the fact that they feel as though Australian wines are subsidised. They probably are. Once you get into this kind of territory, it gets very, very bloody indeed. And I would expect that this can continue. Remember that the rest of the world, imports a lot of Chinese exports, including semiconductor stocks. You've seen how some governments have been limiting that. There's a great worry about China's inroads into international security stocks, defense stocks, and the rest. I think this is actually brewing. No sign yet that the markets have actually taken note of that, but they will when they actually see pictures, and you'll see this on the news now, of 50 ships worth of Australian coal off the coast of China. They're full. They're floating at anchor, waiting for something to actually happen. The Chinese have not allowed them in yet. There will be a reality check about this. China itself, industrial profits quite good. That was the upside, really, of a very dull Asian calendar data-wise yesterday. And the improvement in those China profits today, that's shaken off the problems that they've had, I mentioned earlier, with their tech stocks not doing very well, and the Indian malaise that weighed on mainland Chinese markets this week. So Nikkei edging 0.15 lower, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur about 0.25% down. Again, not an enormous amount of movement because we are incredibly dependent on an active US market, which of course we're not getting today. Well, we didn't get it yesterday because of Thanksgiving, and we're not getting it today because of very, very short trading hours in this country, in the UK. So area lockdowns in. Now there are 98/99% of the population are affected by tier 2 and 3 lockdowns. These are very, very serious indeed. The hospitality sector will be allowed to come back very, very basically, but this will be nothing like the relief that there was in the midsummer to allow people to actually go out. What Christmas will be like, nobody really knows. It was also announced that Germany and France will be increasing their restrictions as well. France's hospitality industry will be restricted until January the 20th. So they're taking it very, very seriously indeed there. Brexit, UK and European negotiators. Now, Michel Barnier has thankfully come out of, good for him, out of isolation, COVID-19. They'll be talking face to face about that. But there are still big roadblocks there. And the long-standing problems about fisheries and so on, and state aid as well. Whether that'll happen, who knows? But anyway, they're discussing it. You're looking at some very old pictures of the House of Commons there. Yes, it isn't like that these days. There's nobody there at all. Oil. Commodities. Now, OPEC Plus meets formally on Monday. You know about this. You know about Iraq, UAE, and most importantly, Nigeria, all making a lot of noise about the unfairness of quota allocations. They know that Russian compliance has been weak. It always is. So there is a lot of oil around. I've always said this. Don't take too much notice of what's happening with the oil price because it's not really reflecting what's going on in the real world, i.e. OPEC, I have to say, as a cartel, is not looking after its members. OPEC Plus, well, good luck with that. Everybody will probably go their own way, and gold remains vulnerable. I caution you, finally, on my global view about this, so it's Black Friday today, Cyber Monday on Monday. The doctor talked about queuing in his shop to buy something. I think a lot of people will be queuing in this country in post offices on Tuesday morning, trying to send back the parcels and the stuff they ordered rather oddly when they got into Black Friday and Cyber Monday fever. That's your global view.
Quickly, Michael, I'd like to ask you, there's been some interest in President-elect Joe Biden's pick of Janet Yellen as the probable Treasury Secretary. But considering the fact that she talks more about Main Street, income inequality, what do you think we should expect from her if she's eventually confirmed? And what kind of relationship should we expect between her and Jerome Powell with regard to all the big issues in the American economy?
I think she'll be very good. I think she ran a very good ship at the Fed, and everybody waited until she actually spoke and they took notice of what she said. I know it's very, very difficult from doing a central bank to actually being, as it were, a finance minister of a country. There are lots of gaps there. She's going to have to move her brain away from Wall Street to Main Street, get all that. But I think she probably will. No, I think she's what we would call here a very safe pair of hands. And I think that the relationship between her, the markets, because they will trust her, and also business as well, they will trust her too, will be very good indeed. What happens about the assault on high-tech industries, I do not know. I mean, that's something which Biden may well continue. The Democrats are very, very keen on that. But remember, they're sort of a bit stricken by the fact that any new legislation that they put through, which is anti-corporatist, will have to overcome a very strong Republican Party, because the United States is split almost straight down the middle, a marginal majority, as you know, for the Democrats and Joe Biden, but not much. And I think we'll have a lot of stick in the muds actually saying we don't want to go this way. But generally speaking, the markets like the fact that Janet Yellen has been given that job, and so by extension, so should we.
Okay, real quickly, I just want to know your take on this. The Australian economy has been largely very stable over the years, and you know why? Because of proximity, they can ship things into China, they can give China coal, copper, and some other things like that. Yeah. With all of this China is doing, China is beginning to push back with tariffs and the likes. Is it going to disrupt the equilibrium or the stable octet, as it were, of the Australian economy?
Yes, it will. I was saying that I think that the reality of those ships, for example, being anchored off the coast, there are 80 of them, and they're not being allowed into China ports, there will be a big reality check as far as Australia's markets are concerned. And I think that will reverberate around the world. Now, we have seen a lot of movement on trade, as you know. We've noted that on this program. We've got a US president who is keen to start globalization starting again. He wouldn't call it globalization, but starting an engagement perhaps with the rest of the world that we don't think Donald Trump did. So I feel as though there's a lot of work to be done as far as trade's concerned, both from the World Trade Organization, and you know who we're talking about there, but also as far as individual companies are concerned. But you're right, there's going to be a big flashpoint between China and Australia, and we'll watch with interest in the next coming weeks. But the big, I will guarantee you, if I were a news editor right now, I'd get the helicopter up there and I'd start taking pictures of those coal ships.
I can't imagine. Goodness me. Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate you for that. For update on COVID-19, we'll go to Aaron. Aaron, the name on my lips this morning is AstraZeneca. Is that the name on your lip too?
I didn't get what you said.
I said the name on my lip this morning is AstraZeneca.
Yes, AstraZeneca is in the news for all the wrong reasons. We'll be highlighting it. But before then, let's actually start it off by looking at the global outlook on COVID-19 this morning. And I must say, the last 24 hours has seen a flat rate in the number of infected people globally, with 572,641, almost similar to the numbers that actually came in the previous 24 hours. As it stands right now, it is 60 million, close to about 61 million actually confirmed globally, 60 million, now that's 73,636, but the deaths are still up by 21%. Yesterday alone, we had over 10,000 deaths, 10,646 to be very precise. And let's quickly move away from that to the U.S. We know that celebrations of Thanksgiving went down in the U.S. Yesterday, President Donald Trump has said that he believes that the delivery of the COVID-19 vaccine will begin next week and the week after. This is what he said to the U.S. troops when he actually spoke to them via video link. Let's see if that would actually pan out. Now, looking at the figures from the U.S., we've also seen major rise in the number of cases in the U.S. In terms of COVID-19. We've been looking at it and looking at the figures and hoping that this actually comes down a little bit. But more importantly, the hospitalization also is still frightening at the moment. Now, moving away from the U.S. to Germany, where we're seeing major rise in the number of cases. As a matter of fact, 22,806 were the number of confirmed cases yesterday, and as they crossed the 1 million mark in terms of COVID-19 cases. Although, putting it in context, in the last 14 days, it is down by 4%. But the deaths are still up by 77%. 426 were the numbers recorded yesterday, and takes the tally to 15,586. Quickly, because of time, let's actually talk about, we've been speaking about COVID-19 and the push to get a vaccine. And as it stands right now, spy theft and cyber theft have been very rife, and that is one thing that all these pharmaceuticals and countries have been guarding against. And reports actually have it that South Korea have actually come out to speak and say that North Korea tried to infiltrate their and attempted to hack some South Korean companies who were developing vaccines. And a lawmaker, Han Tang-kyu, said that at the moment, the hackers tried but failed. But these hackers were from North Korea. Also, to corroborate this particular story, Microsoft said that hackers from Russia and North Korea tried to break into their network, and the network of 7 pharmaceuticals and other countries in South Korea, Canada, France, India, and the United States. Now, Rufai, you mentioned AstraZeneca. They've been in the news for all the wrong reasons. We're here celebrating the fact that AstraZeneca might just have a vaccine, and not just a vaccine that might be the cheapest in the market. As a matter of fact, in the UK, there were talks that it was even cheaper than a cup of coffee. But at the moment, it's really sad because Reuters came up with a news that said that they had a lucky break, a very big lucky break, or what they are calling a lucky mistake, whereby researchers in Britain had meaning to give volunteers the initial dose of full strength, but due to miscalculations and accidentally gave them half strength, and they found out that half strength literally works. And it has brought questions upon questions, because first of all, this particular news was not revealed by AstraZeneca themselves, so a lot of people are beginning to question the efficacy and also the potency of this particular vaccine. And not only that alone, they've been fraught with several complaints left, right, and center. We look at this and we're not still sure of the side effects. Of course, we know the side effects from the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. You can see there, fever, chills, and some aches. For the Moderna, we know the short fatigue, headache, and pains. For Pfizer, for AstraZeneca, we're not sure at the moment. As a matter of fact, to make it even worse, I had said this before, on the 6th of September, so you remember it was their efforts were actually halted due to the fact that somebody developed transfer myelitis. Also on the 21st of October, a newspaper in Brazil said that someone who actually got the vaccine actually died. Although Pfizer did not, AstraZeneca did not comment about this, but at the moment, it's looking really dodgy at the moment, this particular vaccine.
I mean, Aaron, that's why I keep shouting the word peer review, peer review, peer review.
That needs to happen as soon as possible.
It has to be properly done. Let's give extensive time for this. I know we've all done a good job as regards this vaccine race, trying to get a vaccine out on time, but it needs to be peer reviewed.
True.
Even drugs that have been in circulation and are being used for so many years are still being peer reviewed. At some point, there used to be a popular injection they used to give a lot of people that had malaria. It was a painkiller injection, but it will numb the leg and almost paralyze the person. You know the name of that injection. It was a result of peer review that they stopped that injection in the end, and now they hardly give it any longer. So peer review is really important.
Well, questions have been raised about transparency and rigor. And we've been told that Pfizer and Moderna seem to have followed more the data and the science. But, the head of research and development at AstraZeneca says, well, this is a useful mistake, that what they've done is to mix up the dosage. The dosing is a dosing error. But, further trials will, of course, establish the truth about the AstraZeneca effort.
No, but what
all right.
is the big question mark there?
Aaron, I know you want to put in a point, but I'd like to thank you so much for your time and thank you for your persistence on this.